I have full confidence in Catherine and William. Their judgment is sound, their loyalty unquestionable.
Behind the closed doors of the palace, King Charles quietly entered a room few were allowed to enter. There were no cameras, no ceremonial bells, no official announcements to the public. On the table lay only a secret file, a pen lying still, and a few senior advisors waiting in absolute tension. Charles said little. He gazed down at the document before him, a document directly concerning the future of Prince William, his eldest son and future King of England. A single signature could change how the monarchy prepared for the day of the transfer of power. But the biggest question was, why would a reigning king secretly prepare for his successor at this moment? Was this an act to protect the stability of the monarchy, or a sign of an unspoken worry within the palace? Before we delve into this story, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on dramatic royal analyses and secrets behind the palace gates. Your support is the greatest motivation for the channel to continue growing and bringing more quality content in the future. The first thing that changed was William. Elsewhere, Prince William received a very short message. No explanation, no urgent title, no details about what awaited him. Just a discreet request, but serious enough for him to understand that he had to return to Windsor immediately. In that moment, Catherine was the first to notice the change on his face. William said nothing immediately. He just looked at the screen, then quietly closed the phone, as if he had just received information he himself couldn't fully comprehend. Catherine asked him if something was wrong. William was silent for a few seconds. Then he only replied softly, "Something has happened." No one told him what had happened. No one explained why he had been called back so urgently, and no one mentioned the document that King Charles had just signed behind closed doors. But in that tense atmosphere, William understood one thing. This was no ordinary meeting. And this return to Windsor might change the way he viewed his father, the throne, and the future that awaited him. When the car stopped in front of Windsor grounds, William had almost no further information beyond the brief message he had received earlier. No assistants offered explanations. No advisors greeted him with familiar documents. The entire palace was unusually quiet, as if everyone knew what was happening except for the person summoned. William was led directly into King Charles's private drawing room. The moment the door closed behind him, he immediately noticed something unusual. Charles wasn't seated at his desk, a symbol of royal power. Instead, he stood silently before the fireplace. His hands clasped, his gaze fixed on the smoldering fire. It wasn't the posture of a king preparing to preside over a formal meeting. It was the image of a father trying to initiate a conversation, unsure how to begin. The silence lasted a few more seconds before Charles turned, gesturing for William to sit down. There were no usual pleasantries, no daily briefings, only a red file folder placed carefully between father and son. Charles slowly opened the folder and pushed the first few pages toward William. As he read the first lines, William gradually understood that this was no ordinary administrative document. This document officially expanded his access to confidential state reports, allowing him to read documents previously reserved only for the monarch. It also granted him greater involvement in constitutional matters and in exceptional circumstances, when Charles permitted it the ability to preside over certain urgent meetings concerning the affairs of the monarchy. But what made William pause wasn't these new powers. At the end of the folder were several appendices sealed with security codes. Charles gently placed his hands on them and simply said, "It's not time for you to read the rest yet." That very statement made William realize the greater truth unfolding before him. What he had just seen wasn't the whole plan. This was only the beginning of a far more extensive preparation. In that moment, William understood that his future as king was no longer a distant prospect. It was drawing closer day by day, faster than anything he had ever imagined. William closed the file very slowly. The room was as quiet as when he entered, but inside him, everything had completely changed. The pages he had just read didn't fill him with pride at being granted more power. On the contrary, they left him with a heavy feeling that he himself could hardly name. For years, William had understood that one day he would become king. It was his destiny predetermined from the moment he was born. He had never tried to evade that responsibility. Every public duty, every trip, every speech was part of a lifelong preparation. But until this moment, that future had always seemed so far away. Now, for the first time, it was right before his eyes. And what choked William wasn't the crown. What terrified him was the price to pay for it. To become king meant that his father sitting before him would no longer sit on the throne. That thought haunted William all the way home. Charles's words echoed in his mind. Each new power granted was a reminder that time was not on anyone's side, not even a king's. That evening, Catherine found William sitting alone in his room. The file was still on the desk, but it was closed. He gazed out the window for a long time without saying a word. Catherine didn't ask about the meeting, nor did she try to force him to share things that were too difficult to put into words. She simply sat down beside him quietly. After a while, Catherine gently took her husband's hand. It was a small gesture, but enough to break the silence that enveloped the room. After a long silence, William spoke softly. "I'm not afraid of becoming king." He paused as if even the words themselves were too heavy. "I'm only afraid of what will happen before that." Catherine squeezed his hand tighter. No words of encouragement were spoken, because she understood that this was no longer a story about power, the Constitution, or succession. This was the story of a son facing for the first time the possibility of continuing his own path after the day his beloved father was no longer there. But to understand why Charles made that secret decision, the story must go back to a day at Westminster Abbey where everything outwardly appeared solemn, precise, and perfect, as a royal ceremony should be. It was a Commonwealth ceremony. Representatives, officials, security advisors, and members of the royal family were all present. Every movement was scheduled down to the minute. Every position was arranged. Every ritual was controlled. But behind that solemnity, a quiet incident had occurred. An urgent state message arrived, while King Charles was temporarily unable to handle it directly. It wasn't a regular news bulletin, but information requiring the attention of the monarch or the highest authority. Officials needed to respond immediately. William was there. He was the heir to the throne. He was the future king. He had represented the monarchy in countless important events. But at the very moment the system needed someone capable of action, William didn't have the authority to read the full message. One advisor offered him a brief summary. Another immediately objected, arguing that it might violate security protocols. Some wanted to act quickly. Others feared overstepping the boundaries of protocol. And while they argued, time ticked by. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 7 minutes, and finally the entire process stalled for 11 minutes. To the public, 11 minutes might be nothing. But in a situation involving state security or constitutional responsibility, 11 minutes could be enough to turn awkwardness into a crisis. When Charles returned and learned of the situation, he immediately understood the gravity of the problem. Not because William had done anything wrong, because William was standing right there, ready, capable, and responsible. Yet he was being prevented from acting by the very system. That moment made Charles realize a dangerous flaw in the monarchy. If a real crisis were to occur, the monarchy could not be caught between a temporary king unable to respond and an heir not yet empowered to act. And those 11 minutes at Westminster became the reason Charles understood that the preparation for William could no longer be delayed. Following the incident at Westminster, Charles no longer viewed it as a minor ceremonial error. To him, that 11-minute delay was a stark warning that the monarchy suffered from a dangerous gap between nominal succession and the ability to act in practice. That same evening, Charles summoned his closest constitutional advisors and the person in charge of communications with the Cabinet Office. The meeting was not scheduled publicly. There was no press release. No explanation was given outside the palace. In a private room, Charles instructed them to draft a formal succession mechanism, a document that would ensure that should a crisis occur, confidential information and necessary responsibilities would be transferred safely, quickly, and with due authority. He did not want William to be merely the heir on paper. He wanted his son to be able to act when the country needed him. The first draft was presented to Charles a few days later. It was cautious, soft-spoken, and written in the familiar formal language of the palace. But Charles only read a few pages before putting it down. He rejected it. In his opinion, the document was too weak. It protected process more than stability. It still left William out of the most crucial information at the most sensitive times. Charles demanded a complete rewrite. This time he wanted stronger language. William's access had to be broader. The terms had to be clear enough so that no advisor could hesitate when a crisis occurred. And most importantly, it couldn't be a pretty document to keep in a file. It had to be a truly operational plan. Charles stressed one thing: the 11-minute delay at Westminster could never be repeated. Because in his eyes, the first time might have been just an incident. But if it happened again at a more critical moment, it might no longer be an incident. It could become a crisis for the monarchy itself. When Charles finished his explanation, the room fell silent again. The fire in the fireplace burned steadily, but the atmosphere between father and son was heavier than ever. William slowly closed the file. He no longer looked at the security seals. He looked directly at his father. In his eyes, there was not only surprise, but also hurt. For years, William had accepted that one day he would inherit the throne. He had never shied away from that responsibility. But what he had never imagined was that the biggest decision concerning his future would be made without his presence. Finally, William spoke. His voice was calm, but each word carried the weight of pent-up emotions. "Father, you signed this document because the monarchy needs me." He paused for a few seconds. "Or because you believe there will come a day when you can no longer continue?" That question silenced Charles. He understood that William wasn't asking about the document. He was asking about the very fear they both tried to avoid mentioning. Charles slowly walked toward the window before turning back. He said that a king has no right to wait for disaster to strike before beginning preparations. History has repeatedly shown that any vacuum in power can lead to chaos. A monarch's responsibility is to ensure the continuity of the throne before a crisis arises, not afterward. That's why he signed the document, not because he wanted to leave the throne, but because he wanted to protect it. William listened attentively, but the explanation didn't erase the feeling in his heart. He stood up, placing the file back on the table between them. "I understand the responsibility of a king," William spoke softly, "but I also think a father shouldn't hide from his son, a decision that could change his whole life." The room fell silent again. For the first time since the meeting began, Charles couldn't find an immediate answer. He realized that what hurt William wasn't the new powers, nor the upcoming responsibilities. What hurt him was that the father he had always trusted had chosen to shoulder it all alone instead of facing it together. Charles bowed his head slightly. He admitted that he had thought silence would protect William from the pressure and outside speculation. But now he understood that silence created an even greater distance. In that moment, the conversation was no longer between a king and his heir. It's a conversation between a father trying to protect his son in what he believes is right, and a son who simply wants to be with his father rather than being presented with an already made decision. While William and Charles were still trying to bridge the gap between duty and affection, another person had been quietly observing the whole affair from the beginning. That person was Princess Anne. No fanfare, no media appearances, no public statements. But within the palace, Anne was always considered one of the most knowledgeable members of the monarchy. After the incident at Westminster, she was the one who requested a review of all internal reports. Every timeline was scrutinized, every decision was compared, and finally only one number remained before her: 11 minutes. To many, that was just a short amount of time. But to Anne, those 11 minutes were enough to expose a weakness that the monarchy could no longer ignore. A few days later, Anne walked into Charles's private office with the notes in hand. She placed the document on the table without a lengthy introduction. Charles silently looked at the notes. He immediately understood why his sister was there. Anne calmly stated that the problem wasn't with William, neither was it with the advisors. The problem lay with the system itself. According to her, William had been prepared to represent the monarchy in public, but not prepared to act when the nation truly needed him. Then Anne said something that silenced Charles for a long time. Protecting William doesn't mean keeping him away from fear. True protection is preparing him to face it. It wasn't a reproach. It was a reminder from someone who had dedicated her life to serving the monarchy. Anne then pushed the strongest clause in the entire document. If national stability were threatened, William would have access to urgent information, almost equivalent to that of the monarch. No further vacuums could be allowed to remain, leaving the heir outside the country when a decision was needed. Charles had worried that this clause would mislead the public into believing he was preparing to abdicate. But Anne disagreed. According to her, the greatest danger wasn't public speculation. The greatest danger was a genuine crisis occurring, while the successor hadn't yet been given the necessary tools to act. Anne didn't push for this clause out of ambition or a desire for William to get closer to the throne. She did it because she believed that the strength of the monarchy lay not in concealing change, but in its ability to prepare for change in an orderly and disciplined manner, and to prevent another power vacuum from appearing. But the first changes didn't appear on the front pages of newspapers, nor were they announced in any palace communiques. But for those living and working within the royal family, things were quietly shifting day by day. And Camilla was one of the first to notice. She didn't need to read secret documents to understand what was happening. Simply observing the rhythm of the palace was enough for her to sense that a new order was taking shape. William began receiving his own document boxes previously only delivered to the monarch's office. His office was given increased security. Constitutional reports were no longer brief summaries, but were sent in full for study. Even the schedules of some important meetings were adjusted to fit William's time. Outwardly, all of this was explained as purely administrative changes. But inside the palace, everyone understood that it meant far more. The moment Camilla felt the change most acutely occurred during a closed-door meeting. When she entered the room, Charles was already there. Beside him was William. What made Camilla pause for a few seconds wasn't William's presence at the meeting. It was the red file placed before him. It was identical to the file before Charles. For the first time, William wasn't just sitting there listening or observing. He was prepared to participate in discussions that had long been reserved solely for the monarch. Charles proactively turned to William for his opinion before looking at the other advisors. Instinctively, many officials in the room also turned their gaze towards the heir. No one declared that power had been transferred. No one said that Charles was stepping back, but everyone sensed the balance of power was beginning to shift. Camilla saw it more clearly than anyone. She was proud to see William mature, calm, and capable enough to shoulder greater responsibilities. But at the same time, a deep, unnameable sadness welled up inside her. For each step William took closer to the center of power meant Charles would have to begin sharing the burden he had carried alone for so many years. It wasn't a replacement. It was a very slow, very quiet shift, but enough for everyone in the room to understand that the future of the monarchy was beginning to be prepared today. After the meeting at the palace, everything seemed to return to normal. Ceremonies continued. Official trips were still scheduled. The press still only saw a united royal family in public. But for William, nothing was truly normal anymore. That afternoon, he returned home later than usual. In his hands was a red box, the kind used to transfer confidential documents between the monarch and the highest-ranking officials in the government. William had seen his father carry that box many times before, but this was the first time it was in his hands. As the door closed, Catherine came out to greet her husband. She didn't immediately ask about the box. What caught her attention first was the weariness evident on William's face. It wasn't exhaustion from a long day's work. It was the look of someone who had just taken on a responsibility greater than himself. William placed the red box on the table, but remained silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke softly. "Today I reviewed decisions that could affect millions of people." Catherine listened in silence. William explained that he had always thought power was simply a duty. It was appearing in public. It was representing the country. It was fulfilling the responsibility entrusted to him by history. But after reading the first documents in the red box, he understood that power had another meaning. Every decision had consequences that no one could see immediately. Every signature could change the lives of many people, and the closer one stood to the center of power, the more easily one felt lonely. William admitted that for the first time in his life, he understood why Charles was often silent after meetings that lasted for hours. There are burdens that cannot be shared in a press release, nor can they be explained in a few words in public. Catherine stepped closer. She gently placed her hand on her husband's shoulder. "You don't have to carry it all alone." That was her only sentence, but it was that very sentence that made William look up, because Catherine wasn't trying to lighten his burden. She was simply reminding him that power can be lonely, but the person behind power doesn't necessarily have to be lonely. And perhaps that's something Charles took years to learn, while William only began to understand the day the first red box was handed to him. Just days after their private walk in Windsor, something neither of them wanted happened. A summary of a confidential document was unexpectedly leaked. Initially, it was just short snippets appearing in royal news reports. But within hours, the story spread rapidly across the British media. Television channels were constantly updating, constitutional experts were called in to analyze it, and social media was abuzz with conflicting speculations. Questions arose one after another. Was Charles preparing to abdicate? Has William been given more power to prepare for the throne? Is this document a sign of a well-prepared monarchy, or evidence of internal instability within the palace that the public is unaware of? And if this was merely a precautionary plan, why was it kept so secret? Each new theory gave rise to dozens of different interpretations. For a short time, the true purpose of the document seemed obscured by speculation. Inside Buckingham Palace, advisors understood that continued silence would only fuel further public speculation. After numerous emergency meetings, the palace decided to issue an official statement. The message was clear. King Charles remains the reigning monarch. There are no plans for a transfer of the throne underway. The document was drafted solely to finalize the mechanisms for preparing for succession in exceptional circumstances, ensuring the continuity of the monarchy should an unexpected crisis arise. But while the statement somewhat reassured the public, Charles and William understood that from the moment the document leaked, This was no longer just a matter between father and son. It became the focal point of the entire UK, where every gesture, every public appearance, and every word they spoke would be scrutinized by the public more closely than ever before. Finally, the day the whole of England had been waiting for arrived. After days of constant rumors in the press, Buckingham Palace confirmed that King Charles and Prince William would be attending a public event together. From the moment they stepped out, all eyes were on them. Charles still walked at the front. William walked beside his father, but not ahead. It was a small distance, but it carried an enormous message. There was no replacement, no handover, no new king. Charles remained monarch. William remained heir apparent. Throughout the appearance, they barely spoke. That image answered all the speculation of the preceding days. As they prepared to leave the event, Charles unexpectedly stopped. He gently adjusted the ceremonial insignia on William's coat. It was just a small gesture, but in that moment, all distance between a king and his heir seemed to vanish, leaving only the image of a father preparing his son to embark on the path he himself had once walked. Charles smiled and softly said, "I am ready to learn what no one can learn alone." William looked at his father, then replied with a short but meaningful sentence. "Then we will learn together." Perhaps that was the true meaning of the whole story. That secret document was never created to pass the crown from father to son. Nor was it a sign that a dynasty was ending. What Charles truly wanted to protect was not his own power. He wanted to protect the continuity of the monarchy, so that if history were to unexpectedly change one day, the successor wouldn't have to step into that role in confusion or solitude. Because sometimes preparation isn't a sign of the end. It's the best way to protect the future. If you find this story thought-provoking about responsibility succession and the father-son relationship within the royal family, please subscribe to our channel to join us in future videos. And now I'd love to hear your opinion. In your opinion, was King Charles right to secretly prepare everything beforehand to protect the future of the monarchy? Or did William deserve to know the whole truth from the beginning? Leave a comment below and let's discuss.